My name is Alex. This is Jerry. We are representing BDO Canada here, and we're here to talk about Policy Pulse. So a bit about BDO Canada. Here's a slide about our consulting firm. You can read all about it. Lots of great statistics of how great we are. However, I want to talk to you about something a bit more personal than that. I myself, my brother, he recently passed, was the recipient of government benefits all throughout his life because of disabilities. Because of these policies, because benefit policies are really important to me, and it's directly connected to my family, it directly connects to my work as well. It's why Jerry and I wanted to share with you today the use cases you do, the work you do in here today is really, really important in creating solutions for public good, and how do we actually all support you all today. And with that, I want to kind of talk about our use case specifically. So this is Jamie. Say hi to Jamie. She's our... Oh. Perfect. So Jamie is our senior policy analyst. She's dedicated in crafting effective policies that serve public good. She's kind, she's considerate, and she recently got a new job with the USDA, specifically working on SNAP. All of a sudden, Jamie's director comes to her and actually says, okay, we got to expand SNAP eligibility to include homeless shelter deductions, to have them include families, and not only that, also include them to have to support them a year after they've been housed. So let's for a moment empathize with Jamie and her monumental task. We broke this down into three particular sections. First, we wanted to understand the legislative and regulatory requirements pertaining to this, so the nitty-gritty bits and pieces of it, being able to simplify all the legislation, all regulation, and be able to produce meaningful and summaries for shareholders, as well as individuals that cared about this. And last but not least, to be able to actually do this from a technical implementation process, so implementing legislation and regulation. And from that, we proposed this idea called Policy Pulse, a tool to help senior policy analysts to do a first pass on learning legislation and regulation. So using LLM and embeddings that have relationships built into them, what we can use with these particular systems is find passages that relate to the homeless shelter deduction for Jamie in the regulations and legislations, find all the relevant sections that require policy changes, and also find the places where it actually is contradictory so that she can go and fix them, and start pontificating and thinking of how do we actually change these particular pieces of policy, specific legislation and regulation, to encapsulate this and to move this forward. In addition, we need to control for hallucinations. LLMs do hallucinate. So for systems like these, and for our system specifically, we provided citations specifically for this, for the sections of the legislation, as well as the paragraphs and subparagraphs for the regulations. But now talking about our third use case, the implementation side of things. How do we actually turn this into code that is implementable for systems? And that, I'll pass it to Jerry.
Thank you, Alex. So one of the key findings was that RAG models did not really generate code all that well. We found that it wasn't able to capture the level of detail that was required for code. What ended up working, what we found that worked, was actually passing in text directly into the query and then asking these models to generate the code. And so for this, we use Gemini 1.5 model, which has a large input token window. And we used this input token window to pass in the entire regulatory document as the first query to use as context in the subsequent parts of, in the subsequent sections of subsequent steps. And then in the next step, we passed in different sections of the regulation and asked the model to convert those sections to code. And then with the final sections of Python code that we've got, we've stitched them together and then generated the entire script that covers the entire regulation. We found that this led to an 80% accurate conversion of the regulation to code, and we validated this by passing in this to, we passed this into ChatGPT and asked it to evaluate how well the generated code matched the text that it originally originated from. And so here's an example of the regulation and how it looks like in Python code. You can see that the highlighted text is captured as conditions and as thresholds in the code. Now, we envision this code as a really neat starting point for Jamie, for policy analysts like Jamie. We envision this to be a tool to help Jamie to make better decisions and to evaluate how to correct if there are any discrepancies between the regulation and the code. And we believe that this can reduce the time it takes to implement policy. Previously, if it took Jamie years to implement this policy, we think we can bring it down from, we think we can begin to think of it in terms of months or even weeks, thereby bringing these programs to the most disadvantaged of people as soon as possible.
Awesome. So, to kind of summarize all this and the things that we learned from an LLM perspective, RAG with property graphs are great for general summaries and queries, but large context models really provide great benefits when doing analysis for complex related documents such as legislation and regulation. So at the end, these things are what we learned so far, which things are moving really, really quickly. Every single day there's new papers on how do you actually do these particular types of systems. But it is a great opportunity to start learning and start implementing tools and techniques for government to trying to do a first pass in analyzing all of this. But at the core forefront, and something that we really want to stress is that responsible AI usage comes top of mind. Controlling hallucinations, understanding data privacy, guardrails, as well as in Canada, specifically data residency issues, these always will be top of mind for us when we build systems like this, especially in serving the public. And at the end, a lot of these tools and techniques are brand new, and this is just the beginning. So come talk to us, and thank you so much for your all the time. Thank you.